love story. When I was like in 3rd or 4th grade, there was this really dumb game that kids used to play. Kids still play this. It's not hard to figure out. When there are kids swinging on the swings, someone not on the swings runs from one end to the other. So basically, you just try not to get hit by the body swinging. I guess it's a thrill. Anyway, I just want to make it clear, I was not playing this game. I wasn't about that life. I was a swinger, not a runner. But it was time for my class to leave the playground. But I was walking, I think, maybe from the bars to like the place where our class was supposed to meet up and leave. I was just walking normally across the playground and boom, I get hit. Some kid hits me in the back of the head. I'll demonstrate. Straight to the ground. This kid, oh my gosh, sweetest kid ever. And I still remember, stopped what he was doing, ran up to me, and he was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Are you okay? I did not mean to hit you. Anyway, I told him, yeah, I'm good, and walked away. I wasn't even that nice. Every single time my class was walking to like the cafeteria or somewhere, the library maybe, every time that kid was in his line and he saw me, we weren't in the same class again, he would always wave at me with like this most like hurt expression. It's me, the kid who hit you. And I'd be like, aww. So sweet. Good parents, that one, I can just tell.
I almost killed my best friend. Story time. Ooh, it feels hella weird saying that. Story time. Story time. Story time. Oh, not the laugh. Okay, anyway, every Friday after our 10+ hour shift at work, me and my bestie always go to Chick-fil-A and then we go to Dutch Bros after. So we go to Chick-fil-A, we go to Dutch, we get our food and our drink, and we're feeling real good. I'm driving back and I decide to be quirky and I'm like, oh my god, let's stop at this lookout spot. Because I wanted to be all cute and be like, oh my god, let's take pictures of the stars. Let's like stargaze. Like, who lets me make decisions? Because that always happens. So I park, and keep in mind, this is on a cliff. We're only sitting there for about 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden, this guy starts charging towards my car. So I notice him, and I scream. I'm like, oh! And then I lock my car, because I don't know if he had a gun or whatever. And then he walks to my car and knocks on the window. And I'm like, oh no, this cannot be happening to me. My friend sitting in the passenger seat laid down, thinking that the guy can't see him. And I'm just staring at this guy like, ooh. As he's staring at me, he puts something up to the window. And I think he's about to shoot us. Ew, I have to make a part 2. I'm so sorry. I almost killed my best friend. Story time. Part 2. So the guy's at my window, right? And he's knocking. I'm just sitting there scared, like, oh my god, what does he want? Like, is he trying to kidnap me? Is he trying to steal from me? And my friend's not being any help. He's just laying there acting like he's invisible. I felt like I was in this alone. So the whole time I'm staring at this guy, I'm just thinking, how am I gonna get out of this? After that, I sped off. And then I almost hit a deer and then swerved into oncoming traffic and then swerved right back into my lane. God was testing me that day. I swear to Bob. And that is how I almost killed my best friend.
I know and I've heard that this happens to Black people quite often, and I've seen TikTok videos about it, but it's never happened to me, and it happened to me just a few days ago. Instead of getting coffee, I go to Tropical Smoothie every single morning before work and just get a giant smoothie with Energizer, and I get a new flavor every time. Usually there's no one in there because it's so early in the morning, but there was a woman in there this time. An older lady who was like already paying for her smoothie. She looks at me the minute I walk in. From the cash register, she starts talking to me and she goes, oh my gosh, I love your curly hair. And I'm like, oh, thank you. She begins walking up to me and I see it all happening in slow motion. She reaches out, grabs the side of my head and just starts going like this. And while this is happening in my head, I'm like, oh, this is, oh my god. I'm like, this is what I've heard about. This is what I've heard about. Without asking or anything, starts just going through my head. It's so beautiful, this, and that. And I'm like, thanks, the stranger's touching me. She was nice about it, but wow. I didn't really mind. I mean, what do you do?
I'm currently 2 months pregnant, but my mother-in-law has clearly stated she is not happy for me and hates that I'm pregnant. She's been coming over a lot to cook for us, but I haven't been eating her food. Not because I don't like it, I'm just in a lot of pain and very nauseous. But she's always complaining about it. I've been taking a lot of vitamins for my pregnancy, and when my mother-in-law asked, I didn't think much of it. This past Sunday, she came into our house and stayed for hours. Everywhere I go, I see her looking for something. I ask what she's looking for, but she doesn't say what, so I walk away and give her privacy. The past few days, I've had really bad abdominal pain, upset stomach, headache, and nausea. So when I called my doctor, she asked if I was taking anything, and I said yes, vitamins. She asked me to bring them in. That's when she told me it wasn't vitamins, it was actually aspirin. I knew right away my mother-in-law was the one who switched them out. I can't believe it. My mother-in-law made me feel so sick, and I almost miscarried if I didn't go see a doctor. I told my husband and he confronted his mom. She completely denied it and said she would never do anything to harm her unborn grandbaby. It's so clear that she replaced my vitamins and she's lying about it. I'm so upset and I feel like I'm not being safe with her. I have no trust and I want her out of my life.
My uncle tried to kidnap me. Story time. Growing up, I was really close to my uncle. I mean, he was like my best friend. But then something happened between him and the rest of my family and I wasn't allowed to see him anymore. So at this point, a week had passed since I seen my uncle. I was at school about to get on the bus to go home, but I got a text message from my uncle. And it said, "Hey, I'm out front. Your dad asked me to pick you up." And I thought it was weird, but I didn't think too much about it. So instead of getting on the bus, I found him and got in his car. And once I got in the car, he started acting really strange. So I sent a text to my dad and let him know that uncle was taking me home. Or so I thought he was taking me home. But instead of going to my house, he started driving past my neighborhood. And right in that moment, my dad texted me back and said, "Get out of that car. Do not go with your uncle. He is a bad man." So the moment we came to a red light, I jumped out of the car and started running for my life. And instead of chasing after me, he peeled off. And he was never seen again.
When I was little, there was another little boy who lived with me, my mom, and her husband. I've always known him as my cousin for some reason. He was like my best friend at the time. We would do everything together. But for some reason, every time me and my mom went somewhere, he never went with us. He would stay at home. Every time me and my mom left, he would sit at the window and just wave goodbye to us. One day when my mom came home from work, she was crying hysterically. I don't know what she was crying about, but she was going back and forth with my stepdad. A week later after that, we ended up moving. I was so sad that we were moving because for some reason we couldn't take our cousin with us. I asked my mom why, and she said basically he had to move on. After about 8 years of living in our new house, I asked my mom what happened to my cousin. She ended up telling me that was never my cousin. She said at first she thought it was just my imaginary friend, until one day when she was at work, she ended up seeing a video that she randomly recorded in the house and seen a little boy riding a red tricycle. She told me she was so scared that she begged her husband to move. The little boy was never my cousin. He was a ghost.
I ruined my mom's wedding story time. So my mom and dad split when I was just a baby, and my mom raised me all by herself until she met my stepdad when I was 8 years old. Fast forward 2 years, they decided to get married. So they planned this huge wedding. My mom and my real dad never married, so this was going to be the first time my mom actually had a wedding. So she was going overboard and being very over the top. I was so happy for her, so of course I wanted to participate in my mom's big day. So after the vows, it was now the reception where it was time for everyone to dance and then eat. I remember dancing and having a good time. I even wore heels for the wedding, and remember at this time I'm only 10 or 11 years old, so I wasn't fully experienced in walking or standing in heels, let alone dancing in them. So as I'm dancing, the floor was super clean and slick. So I ended up tripping in the heels. I completely lost my balance, and I'm near my mom's 6-foot white wedding cake. Yes, I fall into the cake, and the whole entire cake trip over and fall on the floor, and I land on top of it. The entire room full of people turned towards me and gasped. Then I heard my mom crying like, "Oh no, my cake." I felt so embarrassed, like I literally ruined my mom's wedding.